We're coming up on the first viewing of the Crookston flood wall and flood projects. If you look out the window as we cross this bridge, you'll see their hard work. The former mayor of Crookston was really instrumental in the TIC, one of our founding organizations that turned into the Red River Basin. And the hard work that Crookston has done on all their permanent flood protection is really a model for how we should be working throughout the basin. So as you look to the left and the right, you can see the flood walls, rock riffles, all kinds of different functions that form part of their flood protection. As we move through the tour today, we will have multiple people standing up to talk about the different things that we're seeing, but this is about the best view you get of the big project that is, you know, the whole city. So we are just pausing briefly and then we'll keep moving on. Make sure that you introduce yourselves to somebody you don't know today. We got plenty of diverse groups out there, so we're always looking to make connections. Say hi to your neighbor and make a new friend today. I'll let that go and we'll have the next stop. Somebody will get up in a few minutes to talk about it. Okay, sit down. What we're viewing here is the rock rapid structure that encourages fish passage and provides some habitat. Another small part of the overall project of the town, but really well developed. You can see out here, out the left side here, how much effort went into placing those rocks and creating those different stair-stepping effect to build habitat while taking care of the river. So, and now we'll be heading out of town, and you won't hear from me again for a while.
Hello folks, the next site coming up is the Demarais Hanson project site number 2 on your agenda plan here. I'm Tony Norby with Houston Engineering. I work with the Red Lake Watershed District and also with the Red Lake Soil and Water Conservation District on this project. Right now, there's nothing constructed at this point in time. They're using one watershed, one plan dollars, kind of more as a feasibility to see what can be done here at this point. It's coming up here on our left side. This project site, in the 1970s, the locals here said you could jump across this little coulee here. At this point in time, we have about a 225-foot gap between the top of bank to top of bank here with lots of erosion happening. I know you can see the site a lot better come fall with all the leaves off, but you can kind of get a little bit of an idea of what's going on here by just looking at those sloughing banks along the wheat field edge there and also here on the other side. Right now, currently, that top slough on this side is about 225 feet, kind of from the corner of that house there on the east side here of the coulee. We looked at about 4 different alternatives. One, kind of just doing nothing, and you can about imagine what's going to keep happening here. 2 was trying to do some grade stabilization, but with the fall, we're dealing with about 50 feet of fall here over about 630 feet of length. So the idea here of this kind of the selected alternative that was presented to the One Watershed, One Plan committee was to just try to armor what's here, try salvage what's here, keep the erosion at a minimized from occurring and keeping on, moving down into the oxbow there of the Red Lake River, and then just kind of trying to manicure kind of the banks for what's here. So that's currently the stage of where this project is at. There's also some plunge pool designs I think that we're going to kind of take into effect. There's some grade changes, kind of steeper coming right out of the culvert here on County Road 11, and then kind of flattens out a little bit and then takes off again. So what we're kind of planning is 2 different plunge pools kind of before it hits that oxbow. So right now we're kind of in final design aspects of things, and probably looking at construction sometime next year. So with that, I think the cost estimate on this project is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $200,000 to $250,000. So I guess that's all. I guess that's all I have, unless there's some questions. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Matthew Sorvig. I'm with the Pennington SWCD. We're going to be coming up on the County Ditch 96 outlet project here in a couple miles. The Pennington County contracted with HDR Engineering for the project management engineering on this project. Geotechnical report was completed in April of 2020, and the project design was completed in the summer of 2020. Funding came from a Clean Water Fund grant from the Red Lake County SWCD, Watershed-Based Implementation Funding, Pennington County Ditch Authority, and the Red Lake Watershed District. The cost for project construction came in at $192,000, and construction started late October and finished in mid-November of last year. The Red Lake River from County Ditch 96 to the Clearwater River is on the TMDL impaired waters list for turbidity, and this is a high priority because of the high importance of the Red Lake River, which provides domestic water supply for many towns downstream. And then I'll be handing it off here to HDR to give a little talk on some of the technical aspects of the project. And yeah, we're coming right up on it. Let's go.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Dylan Nelson with HDR Engineering. So we're going to be coming up on the ditch here soon. A little history on this system. It's a very large system that feeds into the Red Lake River, as Matt said. Historically, there's been severe sloughing on the side slopes. Some rotational failures have occurred on this outlet portion. So what's happened in the past is they've actually cut this ditch back twice now to a 4-to-1, and they still had the situation worsening. So what we did was we came in and we did some soil borings and put some monitoring wells in, and what we found was it wasn't a weight issue from the slopes. It was actually groundwater that was coming in from the south bank that was causing this failure, and it was getting into a weak clay layer. So we looked at several alternatives, looked at cutting the slope back to a 6-to-1, and that wasn't going to work. So we looked at chimney drains and a French drain alternative, and what we found was the best alternative was a riprap filter. And what that consists of is essentially a sand wedge, a gravel wedge, and a riprap wedge over the top that you'll see comes up about 20 feet from the toe. And that captures the groundwater as it comes into out of the slope and migrates it in a controlled manner down to the toe of the system. So the riprap actually isn't specifically for armoring in this sense, even though it does have some protection to the channel. It's basically to hold that filter in place and is part of the filter system. So you'll see it here on the south side as we go a little further. It's about 880 feet long, and we designed the filter so that essentially we didn't want it to all migrate together. So the sand had to be a gradation that wouldn't, migrate into the gravel and wouldn't come through the riprap, so that, if that occurred, then we really wouldn't have any, it just wouldn't work. So, and we also, to note, didn't put any geotextile fabric down as well, because we didn't want to inhibit the water from getting into that filter at all. So that's essentially the project. This is the first phase that you see here, and we're actually going on the other side now, up a half mile as well on the south slope, and looking at that. So that's currently in design. We've done the survey for that. We've put monitoring wells in for that as well. So now this winter we'll look at the analysis and get the design for construction of hopefully next year. So.
Test. All right. Welcome, everyone. I know some of you have been on the road for a long time. I was fortunate enough to obviously not have to be on the bus for 3 hours. At any rate, what we'd like to talk about right away is the outlet. We're going to look at this project backwards. This is the outlet to the Thief River Falls Westside Flood Damage Reduction Project. This was a multi-purpose project which consisted of clean water funds, flood hazard mitigation funds from the state of Minnesota, Minnesota Department of Transportation funding, City of Thief River Falls, and Pennington County. There's a lot of moving parts to this project. This project this here outlet channel is paid entirely by clean water funds from the constitutional amendment passed in 2008 and matched by local funds. Permitting, is there any from the Corps on this bus? Okay, I'll still be nice. So this channel was permitted by the Corps of Engineers and Bowser, the state of Minnesota. As you know, there's some exemptions for agricultural drainage. The agricultural ditch, County Ditch 1, ends right at the highway here. So the County Ditch 1 went off to this direction over here and covers about 4 to 5 square miles. When the Corps permitted this project, they permitted under the Rivers and Harbors Act. So they called this a river from here upstream, which is a whole different designation than a legal drainage system. So there was a lot of hoops that we had to go through, not only with the Corps permitting process, but how we could construct and engineer our project. There's another issue that we had at this location. The airport's right across the river. We had to also get a variance from the FAA for redoing this channel because it's in the flight pattern of all of the runways for the airport. So we had to have meetings with the FAA out of Chicago and local, state, to convince them that we weren't increasing habitat units. We could not increase habitat units because they don't want increased migratory waterfowl or anything in their flight pattern. So we had to let them know that, we're going to put a rock, we're going to stabilize this channel. The ducks don't like rocks all that well. Water is not going to stay in this channel. And with the river directly, 1,800 feet away, the river will be their source of water for nesting and such. So we did convince them that we would not increase wildlife habitat. So they gave us their variance to do our project within their flight pattern. So there was a few issues we had to resolve, permitting and the FAA, but so we got this project completed and we'll continue on. Paid for by a Minnesota Department of Transportation partnership grant. So we got a $400,000 grant from DOT to connect the bypass channel that we're going to talk about here in a couple seconds with this outlet channel that was a Clean Water Fund project. All right, we can continue on. So as we move to the northerly direction, you'll notice that there's 2 channels that converge. We could not cover up the river that's over here, and we had to leave that channel intact, at the same time constructing a channel pretty much parallel with the existing channel. Therefore, the landowner was sure hopeful that we would be able to cover the existing ditch. We call it a ditch because it's called County Ditch 1. But we could not do, it's County Ditch 1, Pennington County Ditch 1. So anyway, we have 2 channels that converge and we have a little pie piece there. This channel to the left, which we'll be able to see it better when we come back and head out back to Crookston. But this channel runs parallel with the railroad tracks, and ultimately it was just a farm field with a road ditch prior to this project. It will pass a 100-year event right now, and that's a state requirement for protecting cities from floodwaters, is to give 100-year protection for the City of Thief River Falls and the local community. So this project is designed for 100-year flow frequency. And I just want to give kudos to Pennington County. I gave them a real long notice of yesterday if they could get this mowed for us. And they couldn't get to the outlet in time, but they've mowed the remainder of the project, as well as one other one that we may go look at if there's time. So here we come up to one of our many roundabouts that we just built here in the city of Thief River Falls. It's probably one of 5 right now. For the per capita city of Thief River Falls, we probably have the most roundabouts of anywhere except for Europe. So we're going to go over our first roundabout here in Thief River Falls, and we like them. I think they get traffic flow very well through the city. Some people hate them. Some people like them. I like them. Just for a bypass, the county is having a bridge cutting ceremony for the new bridge right off to the east here at 11 o'clock today, but we won't be able to make that. So here we are. We're going upstream on our flood hazard mitigation project. There's the channel that you can see right now, no water in it, which was quite a contrast from last year. In 2000, when they started the project, we had water in that channel stored pretty much during the whole construction season. It's really just like a mini Winnipeg diversion project. If anybody's been to Winnipeg and seen their diversion project, this is a 100-year protection, where I think Winnipeg is probably 500, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a mini diversion project. The whole project scope was to divert upwards of 6 square miles of water that comes directly into the city of Thief River Falls from the north and west, and to divert it along the west side of the city of Thief River Falls. We're going to go through some real large improvements to the city that's happened over the last, well, it started probably in 1970 when Digi-key started, but Antarctic Enterprise, which is now Textron. So it's a real big area of town that's heavily, it's got a lot of infrastructure and protection that needed to be attained, and this project accomplished that. This project started with a petition from the city of Thief River Falls and the Pennington County to the watershed district to investigate the flooding issues or the potential flooding issues in the city of Thief River Falls as we go into the future. And this is the end result of that study. So the project, the water that came into the city, and we'll be driving along the old County Ditch 70 that was abandoned, was turned over to the city, which in turn was abandoned because they put it into a stormwater system and then put it underground. It looks a lot nicer than what it did prior. So we'll just continue on. Yeah, we'll continue on and just go, not this way, we'll go straight.
Byron, I don't think you can.
Oh, you can? Okay, we'll have to turn. I'm sorry. I didn't know they could cut that off. But at any rate, the detour of the water, the diversion of the water starts right on the other side of those buildings, comes around the infrastructure, and continues to where we just came. So we're taking this a little backwards than what I was
Probably go by Digi-key and then down Greenwood.
Okay. But I didn't realize. So we do have Mayor Homer from Thief River Falls on the bus. He's also on the board for Red River Basin Commission. So I just wanted to get some kudos to him for being an instrumental part of this project as well. So what we're doing now is we're coming up to where County Ditch 70 came into town and continued on in front of the new Digi-key structure, which you'll see over to our right. We'll take Barzan Avenue and we'll run parallel with the old ditch system. We're coming up to Barzan right now. If you look to the north and south or left and right, there used to be an old county ditch that was deep, full of cattails and garbage. To the left and to the right. You can take a right here. Yeah. So this, as you can see, has all been urbanized. It's all storm sewer, underground system. What size pipes are under here, Dylan?
36 all the way up to a 54.
There's 36-inch pipes all the way up to a 54-inch pipe. under this system now. You got now instead of a ditch that collected garbage and debris, is now just something that these landowners can maintain as part of their yard, or the city will maintain it as part of their regular maintenance. As we come up to, you got Textron to the left, Articat Enterprise, Articat snowmobiles, ATVs. They're constructed in this area here. We have Digi-key Corporation, which if we'll pull off to the side just a little bit here on this parking area and just get out of the traffic runway, we'll just go off on this curb here and we'll just have a real quick synopsis of Digi-key here while we're, this is kind of a quick run here. So there was a ditch here. Digi-key took it upon themselves to urbanize this area to what they needed at the time. To do this, Mayor, is it $10 million? How many million was? How many dollars? $500 million expansion to Digi-key Corporation. What Digi-key Corporation is a small company that started in the 1970s, early 70s, by one individual. He was a local Thief River Falls guy. He had he was an engineering background, but I think mechanical engineering background at UND. He was a big ham radio guy. Decided that he wanted to tinker in ham radios. He was always so frustrated because he couldn't get parts for his radios without buying it in large quantities. He said, there's got to be a way where I can buy one transistor if I want one. One little computer component. I should be able to get that without buying a whole bunch of stuff. So that's what he started doing. He bought large volume computer components or electrical components, put them into 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, and sold them around a smaller area through his ham radio folks. It expanded into this. Last year alone, Digi-key broke a record of sales at about $2.7 billion in sales. This year alone, my wife's worked there since 1992. So this year alone, quarter 2, they're up to 2.9 billion, I think, just a half a year. So they've already exceeded last year's total, just this second quarter. So that's a pretty good run they got going. COVID, they were essential, because they also supplied computer components and to hospitals. They did for ventilators. They had a lot of components that ventilators needed, so they were deemed essential. So they never shut down, quote unquote. They had to really revamp their operation to try and be safe. There's 3,500 employees that encompass not this facility, but Digi-key. In Minneapolis, in Bloomington, they have an office, IT office, as well as this new warehouse. And the building over to this side is also Digi-key. Articat and Textron is back there. These are both Digi-key offices and warehouses. All right, we'll continue on. So Digi-key already made this parking lot prior to the project being completed. However, they did coordinate with the city and other entities to assure that if there was ever improvements made, that we could utilize what they'd already completed here. So that was already something in place years ago when they started this project, that we would at some point, someday, do the project that we're talking about today. So the county ditch 70 entered here and continued north or east to the river. This was all an open channel that is now enclosed, and it continued all the way to through the bowling alley, through Highway 32. And I think because how we sit for time, Lisa?
We're fine.
Okay, so we're gonna go to another project too, but we'll just continue straight. Once we get to these lights, continue straight.
Okay.
And then we're gonna go to the outlet of where County Ditch 70 used to, once went. Now it's been diverted, obviously, to the channel you just noticed.
40.
Okay, we're in good shape then. So what you're seeing here is once you do a $6.6 million project, you always find some hiccups after you finish it, right? So the city came to the watershed district and said, we got some areas out there that really aren't aesthetic. They don't, we want this to really be a nice green corridor. And we had some issues, it was not issues, it's just how the railroad, the DOT, and the locals it's hard to work together, and we did a really good job for this project, but there were some areas that were not really well kept, we felt. So we did a couple more add-ons to the project, which were very cheap in comparison to the entire project, to really get this area here more gradual and safe. There used to be just a 2-to-1 slope here, 13 feet deep. The banks on the other side were caving in. It was just a real issue. But County Ditch 70 used to just come in, enter into a drop structure back there, and outlet into the river right here. This is one of our newer bridges that we've got in Thief River Falls. Prior to this bridge being constructed, probably upwards of 8 years ago, somewhere around there, the only way to get to the hospital was to go all the way back into town and then come out. Since then, we've got 2 bridges now through the city that'll get traffic through the city more easily. When we get up to this next roundabout number 2, we'll take a right. I had a guy borrow my wheel, so I got to use. I wheeled it to the office one day. So we're going to go to roundabout number 3, and then we're going to go east. So you're going to take the roundabout all the way around and head east. So what this project is, in the 80s, whenever they built Challenger Elementary School, the city of Thief River Falls petitioned the watershed district for a ditch. They wanted to drain the area where they wanted to build a new elementary school. The school district and the city both petitioned. So they petitioned to the watershed district to dig a new ditch to the river to drain the area where they wanted to build a new elementary school. Since then, we've done a flood damage reduction project that used that same channel. Then the county redid this roundabout as well as a road to the west across the river. So they moved that ditch that was constructed, that was again revamped during the flood damage reduction project. So this ditch has been really busy for its life. It's changed 3 times. But the ditch used to go right where the road was. The county, as part of their road project and roundabout, had to move the ditch south. So we had to petition to there's a petition to the watershed districts to utilize Challenger Ditch to be able to drain the water, not only from our flood damage reduction project that we're seeing right here in front of us, but as well as accompanying the county ditch system that's owned by the landowners. So this here channel that you see on your right was Challenger Ditch. Now it's part of the flood damage reduction project that diverts up to 6 square miles of water that used to come directly into the city of Thief River Falls about a mile north. We'll just continue on. So we're going to make another loop is all we're going to do in town here since we have some time. So we're just following the corridor. This channel is a 100-year design for the 4.5 to 5 or 6 square miles that drains directly to the river. We have a shut-off valve up here. We can take water through town as we need it, or divert it straight west if it's too much. Again, kudos to Pennington County. I know no one's here from Pennington County, but they mowed this yesterday too. I wish we could hire them to mow our ditches. They do a nice job. It's really fast too. What we have here is just the Garden Valley. They're doing their fiber optics to the city of Thief River Falls, so we got a lot of stuff going on here too with all that going. So as you look to the, it'll be south or to the right, this is all the drainage area for what was once County Ditch 1. County Ditch 1 continued into Thief River Falls straight ahead of us. 6 square miles, 5.5 square miles, went straight into town, caused all kinds of issues. It backed up and would flood this whole area. As it entered into town, it would flood the area all the way to the river. They went to the Red Lake River down, through town. We diverted that and brought it into the Red Lake River downstream of town. And that's really the project that was completed probably in 2007 or 8, somewhere around there. So that was a project that was paid in part by flood damage reduction funding, watershed district, the Red River Watershed Management Board, which is an integral part in all these flood damage reduction projects, as well as local landowners that own the ditch system. Because of the way the statutes are written, we'll take a left. The way the statutes are written, and I mean, you can't use public funds outside dollars for private drainage, and legal drainage systems are private drainage, so we really had to balance between what was private drainage and what was public value drainage for the entire watershed district. And with that, we could use our capital project funds for anything that's deemed public or for flood damage reduction benefits. So now Dylan wants to get out wherever.
Gravel roads are fine.
I know it's quick and it's hard to observe, and I've never been a real fan of sitting in a bus looking at a project 35 miles an hour or 50. So what we're going to be doing now is we just are going to meander our way through town and head out to Agassiz, which is, I believe that's where lunch is. We're meeting for lunch over there. Then we'll take the Agassiz tour. But I don't have much to really add, from a project standpoint, other than the fact that the project was very complex. The Thief River Falls Flood Damage Reduction Project, the Westside, in that it took so many partners. We met for upwards of 2 to 3 years with the city, county, DOT, permitting entities, DNR, to really try and figure out the best way to integrate a $6 million Minnesota Department of Transportation project along with this $6 million flood damage reduction project. And I thought from a partnership standpoint, and that's really what we talk about a lot in the Valley when you're trying to do large projects, is partnerships. I don't know of one other than the Grand Marais Outlet Restoration that we did that had more partners, funding partners, than what we have on this project. I know that the DOT alone toward the flood damage reduction project contributed upwards of almost $700,000 just in road crossings for the Thief River Falls Flood Damage Reduction Project. Pennington County added 3 crossings as part of their bridge funds that was appropriated to them. City of Thief River Falls did all the urbanization in the city. That was all paid for by bonding dollars from the City of Thief River Falls. So, and I think that was somewhere in the $2.8 million, Mayor Homer, somewhere in that area, that was, put in that pot of money, so to speak. And all the bills ran through the watershed district. Even for the DOT portion of the project, ran through the watershed district, simply to make bookkeeping a lot easier. So we kind of upfronted a lot of the costs for DOT because we haven't got reimbursed from them yet, but we have the capabilities to do that. So we upfronted all the costs of the structures through the highways, And now once we close out the grants with the Minnesota Department of Transportation, then we'll get reimbursed for the $678,000 that's coming to us. Mayor, do you have something to add? This? Oh, the new mural. I didn't even, Mayor, I didn't even know that mural existed. How long ago was that put there? Sure, he had some eyesore back there, and he figured he might as well get some grant money to fix that. Heck yeah. No, kudos to Mayor Homer for this meat market. It's a fantastic one. I do have a $25 gift certificate I still got to come and spend here. City Hall, which is refurbished, the old depot that was in place there, and the city utilized that old depot, renovated it, and put it into their own infrastructure. So we can take a right at Highway 32, which is the second lane. I think that's all I have. I think you're sick of hearing me anyway, so we'll if there's any questions or anything that as we travel, feel free. Thank you.